Hello, my friend. This is Joe Bakmotsky. I am the founder of Power to Be Happy and the author of Finding Hope in Times of Uncertainty, a guide to thriving in a challenging world of today. And listen, sometimes you just can't help but feel jealous of people around you. I mean, I don't know about you, but I certainly sometimes feel that way. And I think it's the most natural thing in the world. Because that's what we do as people. That's what we do as humans. We kind of always compare ourselves to others. You always do that. You always look at other people and you kind of compare yourself of how you stack up because you want to know how you're doing, right? So that's a huge part of how we are, how we come across, and how we deal with other people. So I think it's incredibly natural. But I think it's so vital to remember that this feeling of feeling like you're not enough, like you don't have something, it's never real. It's never real because it always starts out with somewhere else. It never starts out in you. I don't know if you ever noticed it, but it always starts out with what somebody else has said or did, right? This could be your friend, could be your colleague, could be just someone you met by chance, and or it could be triggered by really what is a reflection in the media, right? Or on social media. Something you read about somewhere and it set you off and it kind of goes, well, I'm not there, and it starts to set off all of these worries and inadequacies and concerns that we all have. And the reason why I said it's a reflection, well, because it ain't real. It's like a reflection in the mirror, right? You look at something in the mirror and it might look like you, it might be but it's only a reflection. It's not the real thing. And that's what happens, especially so in the media nowadays. You know, whether you read an article, whether you watch a video, whether you see something on the socials, that's never real life. Or even if it is real life, it really skips over, it paints a really kind of pretty story of what happened. It doesn't show you all the hard work that went into it, all the years that somebody might have been building up to it, or maybe special circumstances that they had, or maybe a bit of luck that went their way, because that's what happens in life as well. So it's always crucial to remember that it always starts out something that's this feeling kind of jealous and worried about not being enough. That starts out there. It doesn't start inside you. It starts out there by what somebody said or done, or by a reflection of something that happened in real life, something that isn't real, right? Because deep inside here, you are the person who is going places on your terms, and you have your own path, and you gotta go through your own challenges and sort out all the worries that you might have along the way to get where you're going, and to also make this part of the journey and enjoy it as best you can. And the problem is really with our imagination, right? Because it's so good at filling in all the gaps, right? So whatever somebody said or done, or maybe you've seen a reflection of something that might have happened in real life, we're so good at adding all the details. We're so good at really picking out the points where you really find within yourself and you go, well, I'm missing those specific things, right? I mean, it's never a fair comparison. It's never a fair way to look at yourself. It's never a fair way to look at somebody else, because we always want to be comparing ourselves to ourselves. That's the only way you want to be comparing where you are or where you've been or where you're going, is comparing it to the progress that you are making in your life, even if sometimes it really doesn't feel like you're making progress. Because this comparison between you and somebody else, I mean, it's always distorted. It's never fair. And that's crucial to remember, because what it creates this feeling of you're not enough. This feeling, I know, and this feeling, oh, it goes deep. It goes deep. This feeling like I'm not enough. You feel like I can't do that, right? We're saying all of these things that that are awful and just really tie you back. You think, well, I can't do this thing, and look, this person is so far ahead of me, and I can have this, and I don't deserve to have that. So we say all of these horrible negative things about ourselves. And what ends up happening is you start just talking yourself down and pushing yourself down and bringing yourself down for really what is no good reason at all. Because this feeling of not being enough, I mean, it could be a symptom of something else, right? It could be a sign of something else, a sign of something is totally different. I'll give you an example. Let's say I'm looking at someone who might be famous, right? A famous author, and I'm looking at them and going, I really want to be like that. And I know that I'm not. And I start to feel jealous and worked up, and I look at this person and go, well, I want this, but this really is out of my reach right now. And I look at that, and it really makes me feel awful and torn up on the inside. And it sets up all these unrealistic expectations, right? And it also puts a whole lot of pressure on me to be something or get somewhere without really maybe going through the ups and downs of getting there and trying to really get good at my craft and work out what I'm doing, right? So it puts out all these unrealistic expectations and pressure on you, whether this is something that happens in your personal life, whether this is something that happens in your career, whether that's, falling in love, whether this is having friends, whether this is, growing your business or something else, right? In so many areas of our lives where we get to sometimes feel this way. And we want to find, first and foremost, we want to find a way to deal with this pressure, to deal with these unrealistic expectations. And one way to do that is to tell yourself, I'm not perfect, and that's okay. My life isn't perfect, and that's okay. The world around me may not be perfect, and that's okay. This situation is not perfect, and that's okay. It's vital to acknowledge through this, to acknowledge that the world isn't perfect and everything around isn't perfect, but that you are okay with that. It doesn't mean that you are happy about it. It doesn't mean that you're not going to try and change that. But it does mean that you accept it as it is. And we know that life oftentimes is not perfect. And I know that, not that you know this, but it's so vital to bring it up and remind yourself. And remind yourself of the challenges that you are facing, the obstacles that you have, the road that you're going on, right? And it's unique to you. It's your struggles. It's your challenges. And reminding yourself that life isn't perfect, and your circumstances and your situation might not be perfect, and that's okay. That's okay, because that's something that you can set aside and try to go on with your life as best as you can and work on things to create realistic expectations and not put all this unnecessary, unrealistic pressure upon yourself to be something that you're not. And you don't even have to be, right? You don't have to be any of those things, right? We want to make expectations about our own feelings, not images of what's happening out somewhere, of what we've seen, of what reflections of things that might have happened in real life that might be distorted. We want to really make expectations of how you feel yourself. Because those images that we see out there, we see them on social media, we see them online, we see them in things that other people say or do. Those images, they're not true representation of life. They are maybe kind of windows into what's possible, and maybe they are, someone painting a picture of how things are, or a story that maybe is true, but kind of maybe it's missing some of the challenges and the process to get there, right? So this image is never the realistic representation of life. And what we want to be going after is the real feeling. And that's what we want to get to. So in the example that we were talking about, about myself being famous, for example, wanting to be famous and wanting to have those things that, for example, famous authors do have. The reality is, when I started to think about it, is that I don't really want to be famous. And what I really want to be is to be recognized for the work that I do and to have a career, in this space. And when I realized that, so it's totally different feeling that I'm after. It's a totally different feeling. And now, so this, seeing this famous person, it really set something off inside me, but it really was a sign of something that is totally different. And I think that is what's so important to remember, that it might be a sign of something else. And now, if I want to feel recognized, that's totally valid. If I want to have a career in this space, that's totally cool. It doesn't mean that I have to be, like the Stephen King of the world, or J.K. Rowling, right? I can make my own space and make it real and make it work in a way that's realistic for me. And that is a totally different feeling that now I can go after. And not settling for something else, but I'm creating expectations for myself that all of a sudden feel real. All of a sudden I feel like, you know what? I can work with that. You know what? That's real. I can actually imagine myself doing that, and that feels real. So how do you then go about making that happen and making that feeling happen and recreating it and having that the progress happen in real life? Well, it starts by really comparing your progress to yourself. It's comparing to how far you have come and setting yourself realistic objective and goals that you can go after. And not set them in like light years ahead and say, well, this is where I want to be in 20 years. That's great. And I think it's vital to have dreams and grand ambitions, but it's also important to have realistic goals that you can work towards. I'll tell you one thing that I would highly encourage you to do is to keep track of what you've accomplished each day. This is how I start each morning. Each morning when I wake up, I do my exercise routine. I go for a walk, or I do my routine, and I sit down with the coffee, and I write down the day and say, yesterday I accomplished. And I start writing down the things that I feel I have accomplished. And they don't have to be great, grand things. They don't have to be some massive achievements, because it's not a to-do list, right? I'm not saying these are just the things I managed to do and just get off my list. But they're the things that I feel I have accomplished, and they might be small. They might seem small to you or to anyone else, but to me, they're real. Sitting down and doing homework with my son, I feel like it was an accomplishment on my behalf. Sitting down and creating a web page that tells people about my book, that's an accomplishment. I don't look at it lightly because it wasn't easy for me. Going down and writing a really important email that I was really didn't know what I was going to say and how it was going to come across. That's an accomplishment for me in my world. And what happens when you give yourself recognition for the things that you've done? You can look at that later. You can look at what you've done each week and feel like you really have accomplished something on your terms in a way that is significant to you, right? Because you are defining what do you view as accomplishments. So you are looking back and you're seeing you can actually track on what you've done, and it sets you up for the day because you know that you've been doing great things and you want to continue to do that. And then in terms of planning for the future and saying like what you want to achieve, is one of the prompts that I use for myself, and I highly encourage you to give it a try for you too, is to say, well, if there is one thing that I do today that I can be proud of, it would be, and then I write. And then I just write one thing that I really want to do today. I'm not talking about some huge things that gonna happen, like roadmap for the future. I'm not talking something that's gonna be epic and life changing. I'm gonna write a book on this topic. I'm not doing any of that. I'm saying, if there's one thing that I do today that I can be genuinely proud of, like what would it be? And I'll say something like, well, some days it might be like, have a killer meeting with this person. I'm going to prepare and I'm going to put in all this effort and I'm going to make it happen. I'm going to make it as best as I can be. Some days it's like, I'll just try to get through the day. Right? When I really am not feeling it. When I feel mentally, I feel just down and out. And that's okay too. And that in your book might be an accomplishment as well, something that you are proud of, because you've decided to just get on with life. That's how it is sometimes. That's how it is. I know that's how it is for people like you and me who've been through the struggle and sometimes live through the struggle, because as we all do. And it's important to acknowledge that and set yourself goals, realistic goals that you are proud of. Because that's when you are really going after the feelings that you want to have in your life. You're not comparing yourself to someone out there who might, have a totally different circumstances, totally different life, totally a whole level different of effort and struggles that went into it. But you're comparing yourself to yourself. That doesn't mean that you're never going to feel those feelings of jealousy and then not being enough, right? It does happen. But when you have a process that brings you in as to where you've been, where you are, and where you're going, having these prompts to recognize your accomplishments of what you've done yesterday. We're not going 10 years back. Think about what you've done yesterday. What you're going to do today. You're setting yourself up for realistic expectations. You're not putting unreasonable pressure. Yes, you're trying to reach forward and make the best job you can, but you're not trying to do something that is way too much. You're trying to move forward in something that's achievable, something that you can go after and make happen today. Something that you're gonna go is gonna give you that feeling of accomplishment, or having done something, having put all your effort into something and making that happen in this day. And that's what life is about. Going after your feelings, not some image, some distorted image of something that's happened out there that may not be relevant to you or your life, not some kind of a reflection of what might be happening in somebody else's life, but what's real to you. That is the feeling that is worth going after. Because comparing yourself to anyone else is never just or fair. But instead, you want to be focusing on what's right for you and your way of life. My name is Joe Bakhmutsky. Thank you so much for being here. I'll see you next time.